Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. David here saying welcome once again to our Tuesday video cast. Good evening, everyone. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Well, it was a long weekend, so I know you're all rested up, I hope. And of course, this week is going to be a very short week, huh? It starts on Tuesday, so before you know it, it's Friday again. But anyhow, welcome to our Tuesday video cast. Up to last week, we've been talking about, well, there was a part one of our topic that has to do with industry analysis, and we even looked a bit at our internal operations, the analysis of our internal operations. So today we continue. Today we'll continue on that topic. So again, I remind you that we have our YouTube channel, Etienne's Place. All our Tuesday video casts are on Etienne's Place, and also other videos that we have been doing that we have been over the past years. So encourage you to check out Etienne's Place and I like to say binge on the information, on the material that's there. Okay, let's jump right in. We continue. Now, last Tuesday, I stopped at the point where I was looking at what I call some industry factors. Because remember now, what we're looking at overall is to see how we position in the marketplace, how we are positioned in our industry versus our competitors versus other what I call macro variables, because we're not operating in a vacuum. We're operating in a community where we have similar players. So whatever business you're in, at whatever scale you're operating, you will find that there are other businesses in that same industry operating at that same scale and level. And so basically those guys are your direct competitors. You always want to look to see how you're doing from an internal operations point of view, how you're doing vis-a-vis your competitors, the guy down the road who is doing the same thing as you're doing, and you also want to look at how you're doing in relation to what the industry in which you operate considers to be the norm. So we talk about internal analysis. We talk about analyzing ourselves in relation to competitors, and we also analyze ourselves in relation to the industry in which we are operating. So hence we talk about industry analysis. So today we want to look at two additional components. One is what I call the various forces in the industry, in the economy, okay, in the marketplace that will impact us as business persons, as an individual, in terms of how successful we are, or how well we make it, how much difficulty we have, etc. That's one. And I also want to touch on a couple of basic key, what I refer to as ratio or formula, or just measurement of operations. How do we go about measuring our internal operations from a point of, and I'll come to those in more detail, but profitability. How do we ascertain how profitable we are? How can we determine the level of liquidity? And we'll speak a little more about liquidity, what it's all about, and things like that. So let us jump right into what I call some of the industry forces. The first one we had mentioned was ease of entry. Ease of entry, and that speaks for itself. Naturally, if you are in a business, if you operate a business where expertise to get into that business, you have to study, you have to be licensed, you have to do some examination. The compliances are very onerous. What we call barriers to entry, meaning that it's not impossible to enter, but you can't just tomorrow morning decide, okay, I'm going to open up a shop as a CPA. No, you can't do that. You may be able to do as a bookkeeper or so, but as a CPA, you have to go through the process, the examination, the certification, the state licensing, etc., etc. So one of the what we call industry forces is what is referred to as the ease of entry. So naturally, the easier it is to enter the industry in which you're operating, the more you have to be very, very on point. Okay? And you have to be aware of what is happening. Because you may have closed your shutters tonight, knowing you only have Mr. Tom and Harry down the road who are your direct competitors. But next morning, when you open those shutters down the road going up, you hear 6 shutters and you say, hey, what is happening there? Only to realize that because it is so easy for businesses to enter into this industry in which you're operating, then before you know it, your competition would have increased because more players are now in your neck of the woods. Very important. Ease of entry. Next component is what we call the power of the buyers, power of consumers, consumer power. Because as I like to say, you could have the best product in the world, you can preach your product, you can convince persons that your product is really superior to the next guy, but at the end of the day, you have no power to dictate that a customer or a person becomes a customer. The guy may walk into your store every day. You see this guy come into the store and he's just walking up and down the aisle, looking at every last item that you have on the shelf. And then when he comes out, let me fix my little makeshift desk. When he comes out, empty-handed. Every day the guy. You see, so you cannot force him to become a buyer. So the power of the buyer is very important. Again, in a different sense, or in a related sense rather, when buyers have heavy spending power, okay? When buyers have heavy spending power, they are able to make demands. Because if, for example, the nature of your business, let us say that you're into boat sales. I'm just going for one of those exquisite tie-in things. You sell boats, okay? Boats. People buy boats and yachts and whatever it is, yacht. Now, you will realize that, yes, some of the guys are just able to buy a little boat. Other guys are able to buy some very luxurious yacht, etc., etc. So it means, therefore, that the person with the heavy pocket, what we call the power to buy, is in a position to dictate quite a bit. Is a position to say, no, this is what I want. These are the specifications I want. No, I do not want this. I want that. And you are more than likely to try to conform, try to satisfy that customer or those buyers because they are the heavy pocket buyers. Not to satisfy those customers or those potential buyers is to have them leaving and going next door to the next guy who can provide them what they want. And remember, I said again, if it's somewhere that you find that it is easy to enter that business, that industry, then you have to be very, very, very careful. The guys who are the heavy spenders, have money, you have to treat them as we say with kids gloves, okay? That was 2. Number 1 was ease of entry. The second was the power of the buyer. Okay, now we also look at our competitors, and we speak about that, earlier on. The competitors, yeah, you have to look at that. Some markets, let's call it a market, some industries, some businesses, although they may not be closed markets or closed industries, we may find that they have very few operators. Again, it may be because of the difficulty in entering. It may be because of the capital requirement, the startup capital requirement of that business. Either one may cause you to find that you have very few competitors. So again, if you have a lot of competitors versus a few competitors, it is one of those what we call industry forces or forces of industry that will certainly influence how you go about doing your stuff. Okay, so we looked at our ease of entry, power of the buyer. We look at our competitor. Now, if I look at There's another one that okay, of course, on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, we have the supplier. Okay, we have the supplier. So once again, the power of the supplier is important. Power of the supplier is important. In recent times, you would have heard people talk about, a lot has been said about the supply chain, supply chain, supply chain. Okay, so a lot of things can happen to disrupt the supply chain. And yes, no matter the amount of order or the amount of business that you'll be able to generate, if you cannot get raw material in order to produce, in order to supply, to produce and supply, then you're dead in the water. Okay, so your suppliers are very important. Now, of course, since your suppliers are the persons who will give you your raw material so that you can go and produce, you would want to get the best price as possible from these guys. Now, if the market is full of suppliers, it means you can pick and choose. And the suppliers, knowing that there are a lot of us around here supplying this thing, supplying these wood and this machinery, then the potential purchaser has a number of options. However, if the suppliers in this industry are very few, and the extreme case would be like a monopoly, huh? You know about monopoly where just one guy does control of the market. Okay, extreme cases where one entity is the only supplier of this thing. Now, if that is the case, you're locked. Then you have other variances of it, or variations, called oligopoly, duopoly. Those are just meaning that there's still not a lot of suppliers, okay, but the numbers relatively few. So when you have few suppliers in the marketplace, then you talk about the power of the supplier, because the supplier can hold you to ransom. Suppliers in such a scenario or such a situation are able to dictate and keep prices at a level, because they know, hey, we just three of us, especially if you have 4 or 5 suppliers and they are all in collusion. Okay, that kind of in collusion. They knock head together and decide, listen, we're going to keep the price at this. We're not going any lower. Now, if these guys are doing that, ganging up against you, so to speak, then hey, you have a problem. You have a challenge, right? When you have a lot of suppliers, then you can say, okay, man, hey, I'm going to go elsewhere. And 2, industries and markets where there are a lot of suppliers, you'll find a lot of price variations, because since the suppliers know that, boy, there's so many of us in this marketplace, in this industry, what can I do to attract some of this business to myself? Among other things, one of the ways for me to offer a price that is very competitive to the other guys. And so if the other guys are playing hardball with you, the consumer, you can always jump over. So there's the power of the supply. There's the power of the supplier. So we look at industry forces. We look at ease of entry. We just look at the power of the supplier. We look at the power of the buyer. We look at the ease of entry into the marketplace. Those are some of the things that we look at. Now, why are those things so important? Because remember now, the topic of our discussion is really industry analysis, okay? And the emphasis here is on small business operators being encouraged not to think of these things as just for the large companies. Those things impact all businesses, some more than others, but there are things that we are to be, at minimum, be aware of, because they directly impact our operations. So then, the importance of this overall industry analysis, we touched on them, is really understanding. As I started last Tuesday, is really understanding the company's operating environment. That's what it is. Okay, you operate in an environment, in an industry, you want to understand it so that you can help you to formulate, to design effective strategies. Okay, and it is effective strategy that is going to put your business in a position for success. Bear in mind that all businesses all businesses, but more so small businesses, are faced with what we call limited resources. Limited resources. And so you want to ensure that you're utilizing those resources in the best way possible. And you can only do that if you understand the market in which you're operating, the industry in which you're operating, the factors that are impacting your business. And some of these factors may have direct impact, they may have indirect impact, but more irrespective of what, you want to have an understanding. There's a term, or there are two terms that's used more in the study of economics. So we talk about microeconomic factors and macroeconomic factors. Simple. Micro, small. Macro, large. That's all it is. Some things that are happening in the economy, some things that are happening in the marketplace are large things, meaning that they're taking place at a national level, at a level that is impacting the economy overall. Okay? Unemployment, inflation, changes in exchange rate, if that thing impacts you. All those things that are bigger than just your little entity. They impact every business. But then you have to realize that, and because they impact every business and they are referred to as macro factors, quite often we further say that they are factors that are outside of our control. Okay, natural disaster. So you're a farmer, you plant your cabbage, and before you can reap it, some psychedelic bugs from somewhere fly across the oceans and come, and before you know it, all your cabbage is all eaten up. It may be a storm. Those are factors that are impacting the economy at large. Okay, as I say, inflation, those things. So you have no direct control over them. But being aware of those things and being aware, even in a limited way, of the potential impact of those things will help you to better plan. And we had said last week that your planning will be enhanced, whether it be proactive or reactive planning. Preferably, we always involve ourselves in proactive planning. But there are times when things will happen that you did not expect. But with you being armed with the information and the knowledge and the awareness of the environment in which you operate, then although you have to be reactive to a situation, you will then have information, intelligence. That's important thing. Intelligence, knowledge that will guide you into framing a response, framing a reaction to this unexpected occurrence. All right, very important. Good. Let's now jump quickly and look at some of the, what I would call some of those measurements we talk about. So yes, I've been saying you need to be able to measure your internal performance year over year to see how you have been doing internally. You need to be comparing your performance with your competitors who are all around to see how you're doing in relation to them. And then we talk about you needing to evaluate your performance in relation to what the industry considers to be the norm. Okay? The industry confusion. Because if the industry, for example, say that, in this business, the normal return on your investment ought to be 20%. That's the average. We're not expecting every business to be able to make 20. Some will make 20, some will make less than 20, some will make more than 20. But if you're operating according to expectation, you will fall in a range. Okay? Because when the industry quote a figure, it is never a static figure. It's really like in a range. So, it is expected that your return on your investment also should be anywhere between 18 and 22%. So we expect that you will lie somewhere there. Now, if you find yourself at 16%, there's no reason to start to boo-boo down the place and cry, oh me, oh my, oh poor me. No. It just means that something needs to be tweaked, something needs to be adjusted, something needs to be revised. But you can only know what it is and how to go about the revision if you're empowered with this sort of basic information. All right? Hip hip hooray if you're operating at a return rate of 24% when the industry is saying the average is between 18 and 22 and you find yourself operating at 24. Hip hip hooray. Yeah, Christmas come early for you. Great. But that's what it's all about. So let's just quickly look at a couple of things. There are so many ways for us to analyze a business, whether internally, in relation to our competitors, in relation to the industry. There are so many ways. So you hear people talk about ratio analysis or business analysis using business evaluation or business review using ratio analysis. Why ratio analysis? Simple. Because the best way for you to study a phenomenon and be able to make some sort of statement, authoritative statement about it, is to be able to relate it to something else. Either you're going to relate the now to the then, or you're going to relate the now you to the other person's now, which would be your competitor, or you're going to relate yourself now to what the industry is expecting the norm to be now. So there's always a ratio, a relationship. Okay, so we use things like ratio analysis, doing percentage changes as a way to measure different variables to come up with some conclusion. Three things, I think three, maybe four. I have four jotted down here. 4 areas I want to quickly look at. Number one is what we call profitability, and that is usually what most small businesses focus on. And why shouldn't you? That's what you're in business for, to make a profit. Okay, so we tend to more look at profit, and for profit is simple. We know we're spending X amount of dollars and we're selling goods and services at the end of the week or the month. We want to take our numbers, look and see how much money did I earn this month, how much money did I spend this month, and then we say, okay, hopefully I earn more than I spend, and so that surplus is my profit. And so I'm able to work with a profit number. Good. But ascertaining your profitability ratio is a little more than that. Picture this, and I'm going to use a very, very simple illustration. Let us say that you have, I'm going to use 3 months. Month one, let's say your sales is $100. And in that same month, your expenses is $70. So in month one, you made $30 profit. Hip hip hooray. Month two, sales again $100. Expense over is $80. You have made $20 profit. Hip hip hooray. Still making a profit. Month three, sales $100, expenses $90, you made $10 profit. Hip hip hooray. So all 3 months your company has been profitable. But you will quickly realize that we are having what is called in economics diminishing returns, diminishing profitability. Yes, we're still making profits from month 1 through 2nd through 3rd, but the size of the profit is smaller and smaller and smaller. So if I was to then use what I call ratio analysis to sort of analyze the trend that my profit is taking, what I would want to do is to say, okay, since each month I have $100 sales, $100 sales, $100 sales, but then I end up with smaller profits, let me look then to see how my profit is in relation to my sales. So again, in the first month, I made a $30 profit. So if I take 30, the profit, and I divide it by the total sales that gave me that $30, I'll find that I've made 30% profit. It follows then that in the second month, when the profit is $20, 20 over 100, 20% profit. In the third month, 10 over 100, 10% profit. Okay? Now, if the industry or whatever is saying that your normal profit ought to be anywhere between 10 and 15%, then I would say, okay, in the earlier months, I was doing super well. Now, in the last month, I'm just therefore at that minimum point of what the industry expects, because the industry is saying your profit should be roughly 10 to 15%. So by looking at our profitability ratio, what we're looking at really is the ability to generate earnings from revenue. Listen to the terms. So when you look at your profitability, what you're actually doing is looking at the ability of your business to generate earnings from revenue. What on earth is he talking about? Same thing, he's repeating himself. No, I'm not. Earnings and revenue, okay? Revenue is all the money that keeps coming in. All the money that comes in, which in our example would be that $10. That's the earning. The business was receiving revenue. Okay? But it is only after you have covered all the expenses from the revenue that if you have a positive number left over, which you and I call profit, then that is what we call your earnings. So you want to call it earnings, you want to call it profit, it's up to you. And if you notice, if you look at a balance sheet, as one of the line on the balance sheet states retained earnings. And so all that figure is supposed to be is all the profits of prior years that you have not yet utilized. You have not used it. The company has made these profits. You have not used the profit, so the profit is being held by the bank, and so it is called retained earnings. Okay, so retained because it's not utilized, but it represents profit earned, right? And so the company would have generated revenue, but only some of that revenue will end up being a profit or end up being what you call earnings. So that's one of the things you want to do. You want to look internally how your profitability is moving, or your profitability is moving in relation to your competitors. You're going to ask me, how would I know, what their profits are, etc. Yes, in small establishments like some, it may not necessarily be easy, but there are some publications out there that you can look at, like market review, market studies, census, that gives some data. It may not tell you that it is Mr. Tom's machine shop down the road, but will tell you that, okay, the machine shops in this area, the average profits that they are making is in this ballpark, and so you say, okay, well, I'm within it or I'm far from it, etc. kind of thing. So that's its profitability. Other thing we want to quickly look at is liquidity. Very, very, very important. Liquidity. As the name suggests, how liquid is your business? How liquid? What is this liquid? Simple. It is looking at two things. You're doing business and you're incurring debt. It's a natural evil of business. Some debt are what we call long-term debt. You will take more than a year to repay them. Loans, mortgages, those things. Other debts are short-term debts, meaning that you expect to cover them or to pay those debts within the financial cycle, which is usually within the financial year. And if you use your calendar year, you expect to settle them within the next 12 months. So they're called short-term debt, and so we look at that. Good. So liquidity is saying that if you should take all these short-term debts that you have, whether it be supplier, utilities, etc. If you should take all these short-term things that you need to pay, and then you look at your business and look at what money do you have in the bank, what money people owe you, customers owe you that you're going to be collecting soon. If you were to follow, take the cash from the bank, be able to convert all those debts, those invoices that are out there, you're able to collect them to get more money coming in. So in other words, if you're able to scrape in all the money that is due to you in the short term and money that you have in the bank, with that money total to a figure that is enough to cover all these short-term debt, payroll bill, utilities, etc. So your liquidity is saying how quickly can you respond to debt, short-term debt payment. Okay, so as we operate from day to day, we have ongoing expenses that we have to cover. How easy or able are we to cover these short-term must be paid now expenses from our now available monies, or the things that we can quickly convert into money, like our invoices that are out there. As a quick sidebar, you may have heard the word factoring, and factoring is where I may have done some business with 5-6 different clients, and I have invoices out there amounting to say $40,000, but it's gonna take a while for them to pay me, but I need money now because the bills are on my desk. What I can do, I can go to some of these companies that are set up for that, and they will buy the bills from me. Because you talk about factoring, okay, accounts receivables factoring, where companies are set up to say, if you have invoices totaling $40,000, then I will buy them from you at a discount, naturally, because they have to make their little profits. So they may buy $40,000 worth of invoices from you for, say, $38,000. So they give you $38,000, you give them all the invoices for the $40,000. So they're hoping that they can collect those $40,000 worth of invoices, and by so doing, make $2,000 gain on the transaction. But you actually get ready money instead of waiting to collect $40,000, waiting a couple of months. You're able to go and just get your $38,000 right away. That again will give you the cash flow you need to be able to pay these things. So that is all about liquidity. Moving quickly, we look at now solvency. Now, solvency basically speaks to the same thing, but instead of looking at the short-term bills that need to be paid within the next 12 months, when it comes to solvency, it looks at the long-term picture. So you talk about your long-term liabilities, the mortgage, the car note, all these things that you have as long-term, the long-term loans, okay? And it also look at the assets, and this time it is a fixed asset, your machinery, your equipment, your building, etc. So you want to say, okay, when I put a valuation on all of those assets, the car, the truck, the building, the equipment, the whatever, and I come up with a figure. Then when I look on the other hand at all my long-term debt, the mortgage, the SBA loan, the this, the that, etc., and I compare the two totals, I am hoping that my total fixed assets, long-term value, will be a figure that exceeds my long-term liabilities. And once that is the case, then I'm saying that my business is solvent. So if it should come that all the long-term people that I owe, the bank say I need the money now, the mortgage people say I want all the money now, etc., I can, theoretically, I can go sell all of my assets, realize enough money to pay off all those long-term debt. So my business is solvent, which is a little different from liquid, where I'm just dealing with the everyday expenses, needing to have everyday, easily available money to address them. So we look at liquidity, we look at solvency, and we had first looked at profitability. Okay, and now we want to look at the last one, which is efficiency. And people talk about efficiency. How efficient is your business? How efficiently are you operating? How can I ascertain how efficiently I am operating? How can I do that? Well, it is not hard, because what happened is that I am using some assets, would that be a truck, machine, etc. I am using equipment, asset, machine in my business. And the purpose of using those things in the business is to be able to generate income. Generate income. Now, I would expect that if I'm using month over month 200,000 worth of machinery is in operation, and I'm using that, over time in my factory, then at minimum I may consider that 2 million units of output that will give me a certain level of income is reasonable. And if I'm using the same asset structure and my output is significantly less than 2 million units, if that's what I said earlier on, 2 million units, then I would consider, maybe we're not operating efficiently. Okay? And you can understand that principle by even your everyday situation. Let us say that you have a truck. You have a big truck and you're transporting some material. You can use the truck to transport a quarter load of bricks. And then because you're only transporting a quarter load on each trip, you may have to do 4 trips in order to move all the bricks that you're contracted to move. But while you're transporting a quarter load of brick, 3/4 of the truck's capacity is empty. But for whatever reason, you decide, I'm not going to put more than a quarter load of brick in my truck. You go in the same distance, but you decide to do that. So you'd end up making 4 trips of a quarter load each to move all the bricks that you were contracted to move. If the truck could hold all the bricks, another guy may say, you know what, I'm just going to load this truck because this is the capacity of the truck. So I'm going to load the truck to its natural capacity, which will allow me to move all bricks one go. You will say to me, yes, but the truck is going to burn more gas. Yeah, there's going to be more wear and tear on the truck if I do that. That may be so. But if you compare them, you will always find that when you operate at or close to your efficiency point, then the end result is always much more beneficial than any other. Okay? So efficiency is another thing that we have to look at. We're using some assets, we're using equipment, machinery, motor vehicle in our business to generate revenue. When we look at the revenue generated, is it commensurate? Is it a reasonable amount of revenue or income that has been generated given the kind of equipment, our total asset that we're putting into production? That now has to do with efficiency. Efficiency, okay? Efficiency. A lot more to say on this topic, but this is where we'll stop because, as I said before, it's just a matter of trying to get you to understand that there are some simple measuring rods, okay? Measurement types, I would call them, that you can employ as small businesses to get a better handle on your operation, to say, okay, how well am I doing? And to identify when I am not doing so well. And to further identify why is it that I am not doing so well. And to further identify what can I do about not doing so well. And then you can take action. Okay? Good. So that's it for me for now. David from Etienne Business Solutions saying bye for now. And again, check our YouTube channel, Etienne's Place. You'll find this and all other prior videos, video casts, you name them. And I'm just checking my text here to see if any of my clients sent me anything to do with today's video cast. No, it's not relevant to today's video cast. So that's it. So that's it now for today, guys. So I'm tuning out. So have a wonderful rest of the week, and come next Tuesday, same time at 8 p.m. we will be here looking at another topic to be discussed. So I trust that you will continue to work hard and continue to be successful as I know you are. So bye for now. David saying, see you around.